David Allan Coe spent nearly 20 years behind bars before he turned 30. Prison, though, was only the opening chapter. In the 1980s, he made records so provocative that some stores refused to stock them and the FBI came knocking. He got death threats. Radio programmers blacklisted him. And yet, this same man wrote several of country music's most beloved songs. What really happened in those missing years? The truth behind his underground recordings may be darker than anyone guessed. David Allan Coe was born on September 6, 1939, in Akron, Ohio. His childhood began in the hardest possible way. His father drank and vanished for long stretches. His mother tried to hold a crumbling life together in a city still reeling after the Great Depression. They moved from one grim apartment to another. By age 6, David had already watched violent fights at home. He'd put on Johnny Ace records to block out the chaos. That ache never left him. It shaped everything that followed. By 1948, only 9 years old, he was in real trouble, stealing a bike, brawling, and getting sent to the Star Commonwealth Reform School in Michigan. While other kids practiced times tables, David learned survival from older boys. Inside that place, he first held a guitar. He wrote rough songs about what he'd seen. School years gave way to institution years, and every stint made him harder. The cycle kept repeating on and off lockup. Until 1967, those early years at home were no safe harbor. His mother remarried again and again. Child protection then was nothing like it is now. He carried scars across his back and arms. He ran away for weeks at a time, slept in abandoned buildings, stole food to keep going, and begged near factory gates. One winter, he nearly froze in an empty warehouse. These weren't tall tales. This was his life. He learned early that no one was coming to rescue him. Around 1952 or 1953, in his early teens, he quit school and started stealing cars. Caught with burglary tools, even a basic screwdriver became a felony prop. Guards in Ohio's juvenile pipeline didn't counsel, they beat. Kids got warehoused, the strong preying on the weak. David came to believe the whole system existed to crush boys like him, so he decided he'd never play by its rules. It became a creed, fight back or be ground down. Some of the ugliest parts of his youth weren't only violent, they were traumatic. In the 1950s, he said he'd been sexually assaulted in reform schools, later pouring the rage and confusion into songs. As the years passed, though facts blurred, he claimed he killed a man at 9. He said he'd landed on death row as a minor. None of it matched the record. No murder charges, no death sentence. That mix of truth and invention led some to doubt everything, which tragically made it harder for survivors with real stories to be believed. In the mid-1950s, he landed at the Ohio State Reformatory in Mansfield, a cold Gothic fortress known for harsh punishment. Oddly, that's where the music caught fire. Guards passed him Hank Williams records to pass the time. On a smuggled player alone in his cell, he memorized every note and phrase. He wrote in the dark until those concrete walls answered back. From 1954 to 1957, the voice that would sing penitentiary blues took shape. The early 1960s, he told people he'd killed an inmate who attacked him and met his biological father on death row. Later reporting showed none of that happened. Between 1959 and 1967, the actual charges were theft, possession of burglary tools, and indecent materials. When a Rolling Stone reporter confronted him in 2000, he didn't retract. He wrote a song threatening the journalist. For him, the legend mattered as much as the ledger. Behind bars, something truer was happening. Black inmates took him in and taught him to play blues guitar correctly. One of his biggest influences was Screamin' Jay Hawkins, whom he met inside. In a system where most inmates were black, he found a music that named the pain they all carried. He learned slide, learned to pack emotion into each word. That would later set him apart in Nashville. The story is complicated, though. In the 1980s, he released albums with racist content. He called it irony, said he'd been branded a numpad lover in prison, and now people accused him of hate. He never squared the circle. Around 1961 in prison, he had a giant Confederate flag tattooed across his back, done by an inmate with homemade tools. It followed him forever. He also took part in underground fights, organized bare-knuckle bouts where cigarettes and protection changed hands. In one gang fight, he broke his hand, which stalled his guitar playing. The fights became part of the legend he sang about. When he got out in 1967, he tried to straighten up. He drove trucks and took tough jobs. But the road mattered most. He'd fallen in with biker clubs during breaks from prison in the late 1950s, riding with the Outlaws in Louisville and crews in Florida. That world gave him a tribe. By 1967, he was literally living in a hearse outside the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville, busking to get noticed. It worked. Shelby Singleton signed him, and in 1969 he released Penitentiary Blues, a raw, unvarnished chronicle of lockup. It didn't sell big, but critics took notice. Here was a man who had lived what he sang. In 1970, producer Billy Sherrill pushed him toward the mainstream. Two Lonely People gave Coe his first brush with the charts. Trouble shadowed it. Columbia executives hated the lyrics about drugs, prison, and sex. Fights broke out in sessions. He wouldn't bend. That same year, he dropped Requiem for a Harlequin, an album so strange and dark, nobody knew how to market it. He'd been heavy on LSD, especially after losing an infant child. One track came out of a 3-day drug spiral in a hotel, sounding like a goodbye note. It sold only a few thousand at first. Now collectors pay hundreds, then came the rhinestones. In 1971, Mel Tillis gave him a stack of flashy suits. Coe mixed them with biker leather and wore a Lone Ranger mask. He rode a Harley to gigs. Sometimes he shaved a mohawk. Club owners booked him for shock value and often banned him after fights erupted. He also wrote for George Jones, even during Jones's worst drinking years. Coe himself once downed 47 beers in 8 hours at Tootsie's. In 1973, Columbia granted him a contract that turned heads, his own band, full creative control. After Tanya Tucker took Would You Lay With Me in a Field of Stone to #1, he had leverage. He made The Mysterious Rhinestone Cowboy, a hypnotic record with songs flowing without breaks. It sold over 100,000 and cemented him as the outsider Nashville couldn't domesticate. He cut the album wearing the mask, even in the studio. When asked why, he said his father told him to hide his face because of outstanding warrants. True or not, the mystery stuck. By 1975, the legend was roaring. Once Upon a Rhyme featured You Never Even Called Me By My Name, which reached #8. Mid-song, Coe joked it wasn't a perfect country song unless it mentioned mama, trains, trucks, prison, and getting drunk. So Steve Goodman added a verse with all 5 just to needle him. Audiences howled. The tune made Coe a star while winking at country cliches. By 1976, Coe stood in the middle of outlaw country, shoulder to shoulder with Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, Jesse Coulter, and Tom Paul Glaser on Wanted, the Outlaws, the first country LP to sell over 1 million. He looked the part more than anyone, tattooed from throat to toe, with real years behind bars. A critic quipped, no one looked or lived the outlaw more than Coe. He even rode a motorcycle onto an Oklahoma festival stage wearing his Outlaw's MC jacket. Local headlines crowed, "The Outlaws came to town." The image branded the movement. Then came the free-fall stories. The IRS seized his Key West house over taxes. Broke, Coe said he lived in a cave in Dixon, Tennessee, hunting for food, writing in the dark, trying to start over. Whether every detail is literal, the myth stuck. He had lost everything. By 1990, his record deal was gone, and divorce had cleaned him out. Bands like Confederate Railroad and even his son Tyler helped him keep shows on the road. He kept moving. In 1977, he released Tattoo, one of his most personal sets. He was heartsick, and you could hear it. Just to prove my love for you, face to face, and just in time to watch love die, sounded like a man trying to hold a marriage together as it crumbled. Hey, Gypsy felt like him staring straight into his own soul. Tattoo reached #38, his third release that year. He wasn't just writing, he was bleeding. In 1978, he wrote Take This Job and Shove It, a worker's anthem. Johnny Paycheck cut it first, hit #1, and stayed on the charts for 18 weeks. It even inspired a 1981 film, The Sting. Most folks thought Paycheck wrote it. Coe got credit, but not the spotlight, or the lifetime money. He later recorded his own take and, in 1980, a bitter sequel, Take This Job and Shove It Too, calling Paycheck yesterday's news. By then, bankruptcy had cost Coe his publishing, and the real payday was gone. One song could have changed everything. That same year, he released Human Emotions, a strange, riveting concept with two sides, happy side and suicide. The first half was written before his wife left, the second after. Ocean waves linked the two, eerie and relentless. He recut Would You Lay With Me in a Field of Stone, this time steeped in loss. Tanya Tucker had turned it into a #1 years earlier. Coe's version sounds like a heart torn open. In 1981, he put out Tennessee Whiskey, one of his best albums. Off stage, the floor dropped out again. The IRS said he owed $100,000. He filed bankruptcy. In court, his publishing was sold for only $25,000. Songs like Take This Job and Shove It were gone. He later said a flood wiped his paperwork, and he hadn't even known the catalog went on the block. Unlike Willie Nelson, who struck a deal with the IRS, Coe walked. I chose not to deal with them, he said. From then on, only touring and new songs brought money. The classics were lost. In 1979, he tried a left turn with Spectrum 7, half country, half Caribbean sway. The cover showed him shirtless on a beach. That gamble lit a feud with Jimmy Buffett, who said Coe lifted a melody from changes in latitudes, changes in attitudes. Buffett claimed he didn't sue because he wouldn't give Coe the ink. Coe fired back with a filthy diss track, Jimmy Buffett, on his underground Nothing Sacred, and even printed on the back of Spectrum 7 that Jimmy Buffett doesn't live in Key West anymore. Then, 1982, his most dangerous project, Underground Album. Graphic songs about racism, incest, bestiality, and more. He called it satire. Critics called it hate. He sold about 1,000 copies at shows and through biker magazines, but bootlegs took off. By year's end, Rolling Stone printed lyrics, and the storm blew national. Columbia let him go. Radio banned him. Walmart and Kmart pulled everything. His show fee fell from $25,000 to $5,000. In January 1983, his booking agency dropped him. He'd torched his mainstream career and kept going. In August 1983, he doubled down with Nothing Sacred, co-written with Shel Silverstein. Yes, the author of The Giving Tree. The songs were even more offensive. One track was titled Cum Stains on the Pillow. U.S. Customs seized 2,000 copies. Canada and Australia banned it pre-release. And still it moved. 300,000 in 6 months at biker rallies for $15 a pop, clearing over $1 million. The partnership ended when publishers threatened Silverstein's children's books if he didn't walk. Ironically, amid the chaos, he released one of his most loved hits. In October 1983, the ride told a ghost story hitchhike with the spirit of Hank Williams. It hit #4 and sold over 2 million. The $150,000 video shot on the highway where Hank died in 1953. Critics praised it. Even stations that banned him played it. Grammy nods followed. Castles in the Sand went gold. Fans saw the other side again. The contrast only sharpened the question, how could the same man write both? Then 1984 turned frightening. Over 200 death threats arrived, some from white supremacists, angry he didn't actually support them. The FBI stepped in after a bomb threat at the Grand Ole Opry during one of his appearances. Shows in 47 cities were canceled. Insurers refused to cover his dates. He lost millions in a single year. Still, he pushed out new work, Hello in There, with songs like Willie Whalen and Me and his own take on Take This Job and Shove It. He wore Confederate jackets and leaned into the outlaw persona even harder. Strangely, it worked with bikers. Bootleggers charged big markups for the banned records. While much of the industry tried to erase him, Coe kept singing. From the outside, the mid-1980s looked like success. Underneath, things were cracking. He married a third time, to Debbie, and it quickly turned toxic, ending in a brutal divorce. Many listeners believed She Used to Love Me a Lot was about this breakup, but it wasn't. Still, when it landed in December 1984, it reached number 11 in the U.S. and Canada. By 1990, the divorce plus the IRS mess wiped him out and ended his Columbia deal. The wreckage lingered, lawsuits, courthouse days, and a reputation for personal chaos. The greatest wound was the loss of his daughter. He poured that grief into missing the kid, saying he hadn't seen her in more than 10 years after his second marriage fell apart. Critic Tom Urek called it one of Coe's most emotional songs. Just when his career should have been peaking, private sorrow sank him, feeding depression and drugs that hurt his family life through the late 1980s and 1990s. His family tree was complicated. He had children with multiple partners, including Tyler Mahan Coe, who later created the podcast Cocaine and Rhinestones. With Jody Lynn Coe, he had 4 more children. Touring nonstop and wrestling inner demons, he struggled to be present. By 2007, reports said he owed over $300,000 in back child support, a number that showed how far finances and priorities had slid. Tyler toured with him and was a rare, bright thread. Still, the debts deepened the estrangement. The Outlaw image wasn't just theater. He had real ties to the Outlaws Motorcycle Club in Louisville, Kentucky. Arrests followed in the 1980s and 1990s for drug-related charges. He'd already done reformatories and penitentiaries, including 3 years in the Ohio pen, so none of this was new. Fame only sharpened the consequences. The brand sold records. The reality blew up schedules, bank accounts, and relationships. In 1987, he released A Matter of Life and Death, his last Columbia album, equal parts gallows humor and raw reflection. 3 years later, in 1990, the floor gave way. The marriage ended, the IRS circled, the career nearly died. That album now feels like a warning flare, proof that even in collapse he could still make something powerful. Between 2008 and 2013, he tried dodging taxes by taking only cash on the road, about 100 shows a year. He refused 50 bills as bad luck. The road manager grabbed the cash before 3 p.m., paid the band, and handed the rest straight to Coe. No banks. After the IRS contacted him in May 2009, he stopped using accounts entirely. In 2015, he pled guilty to obstructing the IRS. In 2016, at 77, he was sentenced to 3 years probation and ordered to repay nearly $1,989,011. Darwin 86 to be exact, the figure entered on the record, making him officially a convicted felon. After losing the Key West home in the 1990s, he had nowhere to go. He ended up in a cave in Dixon, Tennessee, something his own website has stated. However it's framed, the image is unforgettable. A country legend sleeping underground. Friends like the Allman Brothers and Confederate Railroad helped him assemble a band to keep a few dates alive. Tyler pitched in. Shows became his only income. The IRS had taken almost everything else. The most devastating business mistake came in bankruptcy court. He lost the rights to every song he'd written before 1984, including Take This Job and Shove It, for just $25,000. In a 2003 interview, he said, "Nobody told me they'd been put up for sale." He owed the IRS $100,000, and a flood had destroyed his records, so he couldn't prove ownership. He filed, lost his catalog, and the mailbox money disappeared. He earned nothing when Chris Stapleton's Tennessee Whiskey exploded in 2015. He still gets credit as a writer, but not a cent. Even the X-rated albums were sold off. That loss shadowed the rest of his life. In 2013, his health faltered. The ride started circulating again, but he couldn't tour like before. He suffered a heart attack that year and canceled shows. In 2018, he went to the hospital again with stroke-like symptoms that proved to be a severe ear infection. At 78, vertigo knocked his legs out from under him. Then 2021 brought COVID-19. At 81, he needed oxygen and IV feeding. His wife Kimberly, her son, and grandson also got sick. He spent his 82nd birthday in the hospital. He survived, but the stage days were done. By 2016, he'd bottomed out financially. He pled guilty again, this time admitting he'd pawned his guitars just to live. He owed nearly $500,000 in back taxes, including $384,101 by 94 from 2009 alone. Instead of paying the IRS, he'd been gambling and spending. Prison was on the table. A judge gave probation. Agents said he'd done everything possible to dodge them. Even his instruments were gone. After COVID nearly killed him in 2021, the road ended. His knees were bad from a 2019 surgery. After the virus, he could hardly stand. He now lives quietly in Ormond Beach, Florida, with Kimberly, needing help to get around. The man who rode motorcycles onto stages lives almost entirely out of sight. His website hasn't listed shows in years. No appearances, no interviews. Money comes only from songs written after 1984. Their earlier work is long gone. His last known release was a 2017 live set from the Iron Horse. No new music since, no singles, no guest spots. In late 2017, he teased an album on Twitter. It never arrived. The silence stunned fans. Despite more than 300 songs, he still isn't in the Country Music Hall of Fame. Those underground 1980s releases still haunt him. Some tracks are among the most racist ever recorded by a major artist. He insisted they were satire and pointed to his black drummer, but the damage stuck. His 86th birthday passed on September 6, 2025. Fans posted tributes. He posted nothing, no photo, no clip, not even a short note. Kimberly speaks for him now, and even she says little. People wonder where he is, how he feels, whether he still writes. All they get is quiet. For a man who once lived so loud, the hush feels uncanny. The singer who built an outlaw myth now lives like a ghost.